Today we're going to be looking at and installing the Corsa Xtreme catback exhaust with black tips for 2018 and newer GT Mustangs that have active exhausts. This is one of the loudest catback options that are available. It's also a very high quality catback. That means it's going to be perfect for someone who doesn't mind paying a little bit more for both quality and sound. And as far as loudness goes, on a scale of 1 to 5, with 1 being a very quiet upgrade and 5 being a very loud upgrade, I'm definitely going to call this one a full 5 out of 5. The catback is made from 304 stainless steel. It's a 3-inch catback with 2.5-inch adapter options and has 4.5-inch black polished stainless steel tips. The install will be a 2 out of 3 wrenches in the difficulty meter, and I'll show you how to get these on the car now. Alright guys, to start the install, we're going to loosen the 2 clamps with a 15mm socket at the front of the resonator here. Just keep in mind, you don't have to completely remove these nuts, just make the clamps loose enough so that you'll be able to slide the exhaust out. Next, we're going to move back and unbolt the hangers here from the body. I will say to leave the hangers clipped into the body still so it holds the exhaust up for you, but we can go ahead and remove these bolts with a 13mm socket. Before we unbolt the rear hangers on this car, this is an active exhaust car, so what we have to do is unclip the harness here that's held in by a body clip. Once we unclip the harness, we'll then disconnect the electrical connection. While we're here, we're also going to pop out the other side. Now we're going to remove the 2 13mm bolts that are holding this rear bracket into place. All right, we're going to do the same thing on the other side over here. At this point, you're ready to drop the catback. I have a second set of hands helping me today, and the way you're going to want to do it is you're going to want to unclip the hangers from the body of the car first, so unclip the back first, and then push forward from the resonator. So first things first, let's take a look at the factory exhaust compared to the Corsa Xtreme laid out here. The first thing I want to point out about the Corsa is that it's a full 3-inch exhaust made of 304 stainless steel. They do give you a nice option here. You have these adapters that'll step down to 2.5 inches, so you can use this catback if you have stock exhaust. Or you have the option of not using these and going with a full 3-inch exhaust all the way through. Then, instead of your stock resonator, you have Corsa's double helix X-pipe here, which should give you a different sound than a typical X-pipe would. Then you have Corsa's Xtreme mufflers, which are known to be very loud, but the great thing about this is because this is for an active exhaust setup, if you guys want to, you can just tone it down by going into quiet mode. The other thing is, this is very loud, but Corsa made this so it doesn't have any drone in the interior at all, which will make for a great driving experience. Then if we move on to the end, of course, you have the quad tip design here, and once again, active exhaust feature. So we will be transferring over the actuator from the stock exhaust to the Corsa exhaust. So the first thing we're going to do is actually swap over our actuators now. These are 3 10mm nuts that are holding the actuator into place, so we're just going to go ahead and undo those. So now we're going to take this entire assembly. You guys can see the spring here, you have a plate here as well as your actuator. We're going to take this entire thing and we're going to swap it over to the new Corsa tip. Before we transfer the actuator over to the new Corsa tips, I do have to say that your Corsa active exhaust tips are side specific, so you need to make sure that you have them on the correct side. The way to tell is if you hold your tip with the Corsa etching right at 12 o'clock, your valve needs to sit off to the outside for both tips. So on the passenger side, it's going to sit off to the right. On the driver's side, it's going to do the same thing. So you can see how your Corsa etching is right here at 12 o'clock. Your valve is going to sit offset from that. So make sure you have the correct side before you transfer over. We're first going to transfer over the passenger side, so I have the right side tip here. Now all I'm going to do is I'm going to take my actuator with the spring in here. All right guys, so with everything lined up in here, Corsa says you will get a little bit of resistance from the spring, and that's okay, and they do that so you don't receive any rattles. So Corsa also provides you new hardware for this. Instead of 10mm nuts, you have 10mm bolts with some blue Loctite on them. So what I have going on here is I have my spring lined up perfectly between my actuator and the valve. This can be one of the most time-consuming parts of the actual install. If you don't have your spring lined up properly, then your active exhaust won't work. All right, so we're gonna do the same thing on this side here. We're gonna remove the actuator. Hopefully the spring stays intact. If not, no big deal. All right, so I'll show you guys right now exactly what this spring is supposed to look like, just in case your spring doesn't stay in the bottom of your actuator during your uninstall or when you're swapping over to your Corsa tips here. So the way that it's gonna work is this part of the spring sits in the bottom of the actuator, and then you need to get this part of the spring right here in the valve in the Corsa tip. So this part of the spring right here is actually going to sit in between these two notches in the valve. So knowing the way the spring needs to sit, what I'm gonna do here is I'm going to grab the Corsa tip. I am going to sit the actuator on top, lining the bolt holes up first. Then I'm going to reach my hand in the other end of the tip and move the valve until the spring is lined up with the notches in the valve. From here, I can push the spring into place, and I can actually see through the top of the valve and see that whether or not my spring is lined up. All right, so with our actuators swapped over, we're gonna hold off on installing the tips for now, but we're gonna go ahead and get the rest of the exhaust on the car. One last thing we'll do with our old catback first is just swap over our hangers. So we'll grab all 4 hangers here, throw them on our new catback, and then go ahead and get started with our X-pipe install. All right, so you might need a rubber mallet just to help you get these in place. So since we are installing this catback on a stock setup, we're not going with a full 3-inch setup. We will need to use the adapters. The first thing that'll go into place then are the step-down adapters that we're going to put right into our factory clamps here. Next comes a double helix X-pipe. Make sure you grab 2 clamps to slide on before you put the X-pipe onto the adapters. And the other thing to mention is you do have a bracket or a brace down here. It says Corsa. You want to make sure that that is facing the ground. You don't want to install your X-pipe this way. You want to install it this way. We'll go ahead, slide this into place now into the adapters. I do have pole jacks under here, so I'm going to grab a pole jack, get a pole jack into place to hold the X-pipe up for me. All right, next we'll grab our muffler assembly and slide that into place. You'll want to make sure that you slide this end onto the X-pipe prior to clipping your hangers into place, and do make sure you grab a clamp as well. All right, so once I slide this end on the X-pipe here, I have my hanger clipped into the body. All right, then from here, I'll clip the muffler hanger in as well. So I'm actually gonna get another pole jack in place here. Now that I have my hangers in place, just because the exhaust is sitting a little bit low, so I want to push it up a little bit for now, just to help me line everything up when the time comes. All right, guys, so same thing on this side. We will get our muffler assembly into the back of our X-pipe. Slide it into place, clip our hanger into the body. So I'm also gonna throw a pole jack under this side too, just to help me line the exhaust up. I wanna push everything up as high as I can and then get it straight. At this point, before I tighten anything down, I'm gonna put all the bolts back in all of the hangers. At this point, we're gonna tighten all of our clamps starting from the front and moving towards the back. So we're gonna go ahead and tighten the clamps right here first. So at this point, we're gonna move on to tighten the Corsa clamps. And I just rotate these up and away. I don't really like them when they're hanging down like this. I don't want the clamp to be the lowest point underneath the car. So you also want to make sure you have your clamp in a good position where you're not gonna have any exhaust leaks. You also wanna make sure when you tighten these that you close the clamp gap completely. So this gap right here needs to be closed. All right, so now we're gonna move ahead and do these 2 clamps. Make sure they're lined up perfectly, and then tighten them. At this point, with our clamps tightened, and before we put the tips into place, I'm gonna remove all my pull jacks, see how the exhaust is sitting, and just make sure everything's straight. At this point, we're ready to put the exhaust tips into place, and we are going to start with the active exhaust tip. Now, Corsa gives you these nice V-band clamps for your active exhaust tip. So they also tell you which way this needs to be facing. So you want to install it on the car so that the bolt is on the top and the nut is facing towards the inside. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take apart the V-band clamp. This is an 11mm nut, by the way, so you'll need an 11mm to tighten this down. You want to make sure your V-band clamp is seated like so. So it's going to grab this flange right here, as well as the flange that's on the end of the active exhaust tip. This is the flange that I'm talking about on the end of the tip, so your V-band clamp is gonna mate this flange with the flange that's on the muffler here. What I'm doing right now is I'm lining the tip up as straight as I can get it, pushing it into place so I can get the V-band clamp into place. All right, so I need to get the nut back on the end of the V-band right here. All right, then from here I can rotate the clamp to the proper orientation. From here I can tighten it. So at this point, I'm just snugging the clamp. I'm not tightening all the way down yet. I'm going to install my other exhaust tip, then take a step back and make sure it's straight before I tighten it down. So at this point, we will grab one of our remaining clamps as well as our last exhaust tip. We will slide this on the muffler. We are going to snake our active exhaust harness up over the muffler and towards the clip on the inside of the car. Just leave that there for now. We'll slide our exhaust tip on. Make sure that it's even with our other tip. Get our clamp into place. All right, so since this is a quad tip setup, we do offset the tips a little bit. You want to make sure that the non-active exhaust tip is pushed in and it's flush all the way with your muffler. Then you can go ahead and tighten down the clamp. So we're back to a 15mm for that. All right, so one of the last things we'll do before we tighten down our V-band clamp is just connect our active exhaust. So it's going to snap back into the hanger and the body right here with the body clip, and then we'll just connect our electrical connection. So I'm just gonna tighten this down with a ratchet. So we're gonna do the same thing on this side. We're going to take our V-band clamp apart, then we're going to slide our active exhaust tip into place. All right, so now we'll slide our V-band clamp into place. Same thing as the other side, make sure that it is grabbing the two flanges. All right, so we'll grab the nut real quick. And then we'll rotate our clamp up, get it into the proper position. All right, so before we get our other tip into place, once again, we are going to get our active exhaust harness up and over the muffler. This body clip right here goes into the body, right here. And then we can make our electrical connection. All right, so last thing we'll do is we will get our last clamp on the exhaust tip. And then we will push this exhaust tip into place. Once again, trying to make this as flush with the muffler as possible so that our quad tips are a little bit offset, with the outside tip being pushed a little bit further in. I'm gonna use a rubber mallet here just to help me get this thing in place. Now we'll tighten our clamp down. That's gonna wrap up this review and install. Keep in mind that you can always check this catback out more online right here at AmericanMuscle.com.